Fantastic. Well, colleagues and friends, I'm delighted to welcome you here on this special occasion to mark the retirement of our dear and esteemed colleague, Professor Judith Bennett. I'm delighted to have the privilege to say a few words to mark the occasion, and delighted too to be sharing that task with Professor Michael Rice, who is a long-standing friend of Judith, of the Science Education Group here and the department in general. I know you'll have really enjoyed celebrating Judith's career and all that she's given to science education, while at the same time starting to miss her already. And thank you, of course, to all of you for coming here to share this occasion with us this afternoon. Now, Judith has on many occasions advised me she is not keen on there being much of a fuss, including for today, so we are sort of reaching maximum fuss levels. We have to be careful, so I'll try to be brief. But it is difficult to be brief when you're trying to summarise such a long and illustrious career and set of achievements. So let's start at the beginning, with Judith's relationship with the University of York. She was an undergraduate here in the 1970s, taking a degree in chemistry with education, and a contemporary of long-term colleague Professor Ian Davies, also emeritus. There was a PGCE in 1979, also here in education, and then a career as a science teacher. However, the education bug had truly bitten, and by 1982 Judith had enrolled on a part-time MA in science education at Chelsea College, University of London, which she gained with distinction. Immediately after that, Judith began a doctorate, and following Chelsea College's merge, I'm a bit of a higher education nerd, so I maybe sort of think. So Chelsea College merged with King's College London, and that's where your PhD is from. And all of that was done alongside this demanding job as a science teacher. In 1998, Judith joined the still really quite young University of York, initially as Saltus Fellow in the Science Education Group, then into a lectureship in 1990, senior lectureship in 2001, and Professor in 2007. In 2014, she was appointed to the prestigious Saltus Chair in Science Education. Now, I'm going to defer to Michael in celebrating Judith's achievements in the field of science education, but as someone looking from the outside in to the field, what I've seen from Judith is an uninterrupted record of research leadership. As evidence of significant esteem, I could point to her high level of citations, production of over 100 outputs, so Google Scholar tells me, hundreds of thousands of pounds of research income from a wide range of funders, including £1 million in the last few months, and the creation of a strong group of researchers and curriculum experts across the sciences. But what has always impressed me the most is her commitment to prioritising, as our first and also our most recent Vice-Chancellor reminds us, what it's all for. That is, it's about generating and disseminating knowledge that makes science teachers more effective and hence helps children and young people learn science better. And that's demonstrated nowhere better than the Best Evidence Science Teaching Initiative that has served as the capstone to Judith's career. And I could have spent half an hour telling you all the wonderful things that science teachers have said about BEST. In 2006, Judith was appointed Head of the Department of Education, a role she held until 2014, after being invited to stay on for a second term of 4 years. It is no exaggeration to say that her tenure in the role was transformative. I remember having been offered a job here late in 2007, thanks for that, Judith, and getting some raised eyebrows from some former colleagues, because I used to work in the University of Administration. Education. So the department had what we would call a bit of a bad rep, up there on the hill. But Judith was already making very rapid progress with turning that round, and soon had things completely in order. And I think much of what we take for granted now in the department about how it runs, its character and its structure, is a result of that inspiration, initiative and encouragement as an academic leader. So that's the growth of our language education programmes and master's degrees in that area, the introduction and flourishing of psychology and education, which was basically your idea and is now turned into this wonderful research centre, the growth of our undergraduate programme from what was a small minor into a major single honours programme and now a big part of what we do, the change of the name of the department from the Department of Educational Studies to the Department of Education. That sounds like a small thing, but I think that's been really important. And I believe that was the result of something you overheard on a train journey back then. But it certainly worked. Our Wednesday coffee meetings, our staff meetings with lunch, a wonderful reputation for quality in research and teaching through various research excellence exercises, all sorts of inspections, and many, many excellent appointments, including 6 future heads of department here at York and elsewhere. Actually, sort of 7 if you count school twice. So on top of all of this, in my view, Judith was instrumental as head of department in creating the very positive, friendly and respectful atmosphere which I hope characterises the department today. And it's reflected in the feedback that we hear from student, colleagues and visitors. And hopefully you felt a little bit of that if you're visiting us today. In particular, she has been a pioneer in the removal of glass ceilings. Smashing glass, we talk about smashing glass ceilings, it's not really Judith's style. Careful dismantling and disposal. She was the first woman to lead the department, the first woman to hold the Salters chair, and I know this has many times meant facing down some unpleasant and frankly wrong attitudes and behaviour. That's never easy or pleasant to do, but Judith has persisted and prevailed, and her actions have created an environment where women have thrived so much. On a personal note, Judith, I'm very grateful to you for the faith you've shown in me over the years. I've benefited from your sage advice, words of encouragement, usually just at the right moment as well, grappling with all the difficult roles that we face as heads of department. I've especially enjoyed our one-to-one chats, which have brought a sense of perspective, and there's usually a telling anecdote that you used to sort of illustrate how things are, will be okay, Paul. And especially your mischievous sense of humour, which I think has really helped us both along the way. And we may have occasionally indulged in a little bit of university gossip as well. Actually, a lot of university gossip. So we're delighted that Judith will be maintaining her relationship with the department and with the Science Education Group as Emeritus Professor. Judith, we wish you all the best for an Anglo-Welsh, I'm going to try this, Rhybeliad Hapus. Terrible pronunciation of happy retirement in Welsh. Filled with long walks, fine weather, and I'm certain more learning. So I want to hand over now to Michael, whoever you are, to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Paul. Can I say genuinely, I am honoured to be here today, and this is typical in my view of York. There's very good food, it feels very nice, there's a lake, we don't have lakes, so it's great being here. I've known Judith a long time. I've had wonderful associations with the University of York since back in the 90s, when I was an external examiner for the MA, and then it was really working on the Salters Nuffield Advanced Biology course, particularly with Anne Scott here, which gave me a close association. And I did want to also, therefore, thank, if I might, David Waddington and Robin Miller and John Holman, who as predecessors of Judith and her successors, Paul and others, have always been extremely welcoming to me. So this has felt a very, very special place. Paul said quite a lot about you, Judith, and the department, so I won't sort of trail over your history there. You and I known each other academically in science education for a very long time. To say to the rest of you, there were a number of occasions when we would meet, usually at places like Welcome or Gatsby, where each of us were leading teams bidding for the same bid. And sort of, I think I'm allowed to say, groan when we saw each other.
Never on my part,
Well, I knew there was a very good chance you were going to win the bid, you see, so I definitely. And then one of the nice things has been how subsequently, in fact, as you know, well, we've collaborated with a number of people here. I mean, I won't go around everybody, but there's Linda here and Alistair, I can see. And I can't see, is Peter here at the moment or not? Or not?
on holiday.
You see, we don't have holidays at our place. A well-designed institution. And there are a number of other people I've written with, Martin I've been chatting with, and work with Maria and others, so it is very good. I wasn't going to give too much of a long speech about your academic career because, it's not appropriate to speak for too long, but you are a very, in the best sense of the term, senior science educator with a wonderful, wonderful publications list. I just mentioned a couple of things, one of which is that book you wrote, which I can't remember the exact title of it, but I've got it written down here, Teaching and Learning Science, A Guide to Recent Research and Its Applications. It's a beautiful book. We had it on our MA in Science Education reading list at the Institute of Education in London because it was the best single book we could find for people coming at that level because it was intelligible, but it was academically rigorous. It's also got, I was very impressed when I was checking its name, looking it up, over 550 citations, which for a book like that is completely exceptional, because it's not a research monograph or something like that. I agree. It is impressive. And I was thinking on the train up about working with you and writing with you, and just only one sort of anecdote, that bizarre time when a wonderful team, we wrote a rather good report about the benefits of independent research projects for students in science. And a number of outputs came, but the main one, which Judith led on, was to be a fairly long article for International Journal of Science Education. And as is the case, you write these things, all the author feed in, you send it off. We got a rather rapid reply telling us it was rejected on the grounds of plagiarism. Well, we were a bit surprised about this. One of us, I forget if it was you or not, some terribly high percentage, 29% on this brand new mechanism called Turnitin they had then. We were a bit surprised at this, and we then found out that what had happened was that having given our report a welcome, they'd put an attractive front cover on it and put it on the website. So that's what all the overlap is. So, no problem. Go back, explain to IJSE, not a bit of it. Still plagiarism, 29%. We sort of, both of us, by now it's Saturday afternoon, we're sort of emailing each other, and I think I was the one who said, well, I suppose I'll try and rewrite it. We don't actually have, at that point, Turnitin software on our laptops at home, so I couldn't check it. So every couple of hours, I'd do another version, send it to Judith, who'd say, well, it's 19% now. Got to get it down to single figures, and I forget what time on Sunday afternoon. Finally, you said, Michael, it's 9%. And we sent it off, and it then went through standard reviewing and got accepted. There is a great deal, I'm afraid this is personal now in a sense, there is a great deal about you, as Paul was saying, that I have come, as many others have, to admire hugely. You are a person of absolute integrity. One of the reasons why Judith and I know each other is because of the Salters connection with USAID. For 4 decades, frankly, this was a complete success story. I don't go into too much detail, but the last 2 years have not been, and not because of Judith. And it has been quite painful for you at times, I know, and stressful, and it's a tribute to you that you've managed to deal with it in terms of the finance and the governance and the procedural stuff, while still delivering on best, as you said. And I'm sorry in the way it ended up, but I hope with the passage of time you'll be able to look back on all the positives, because of course for science education in general in this country and internationally, that link between Salters and York was a very successful one. At a more personal level, you are actually politically very astute underneath that veneer of pleasantness. And I learned this quite early on when working with you. And that, of course, frankly, is crucial, because unless one is both a pleasant person and has integrity, but understands what's going on, things run into the buffers, and they didn't with you. You are attractively self-deprecating, which I think is a very useful trait, which more people in management could try emulating. I don't mean here, just mean in general. And you do have a very good sense of humour, and you're very keen on dogs, and you like all things Welsh, all of which I see as positive attributes too. I don't know about the rest of you. I find it very difficult to imagine USIG without you, as it were, as a core, salaried member. I'm delighted about the emeritus emeritar position. But I've enjoyed working with you enormously, and I, for one, as I'm sure is true of others here, very much hope I continue to see you. Thank you very much indeed, Judith.
Thank you, Paul. Michael, I have to say I'm totally overwhelmed, so I hope you'll forgive me. I did jotted a few things down and I'll do my best to get through them. And one thing I should say is I have a list of people I never want to follow when I've got to give a talk, and Michael is on that list. I've never had to follow you before, and I've never had to follow Michael until today. But I am very touched by all your kind words. It is overwhelming. I think I said to you, Paul, when we chatted about this a few months ago, that one of my teachers when I was at school used to put religiously on my reports, Judith works hard and tries her best. So if anything that you've just heard resembles me, you know, that's what it's been all about, really. It's true to say that over the past few months, Paul has floated one or two facts or figures about my time at York by me. I politely put here that Paul has an eye for detail, but seeing as he used the word nerd, I've been wondering what he might know and what he might not know. But anyway, people who do know me I'm not known for long speeches, and this one won't be any different. I thought I'd just say something about why York and why 35 years, 39 if you count my time as a student. And there are one or two things, Paul, that you won't. Because it's really chance that I came to York at all. It was back in 1974 when I decided I wanted to come to York to study chemistry with education, and my mother, who was a teacher, was delighted that her daughter wanted to study education. However, my father was not happy at all. He didn't want me to apply to what he called a newfangled university. And that meant one of the universities established in the 60s. The only thing worse than York was Keele, by the way, and I hope that doesn't but he felt I should be applying, to use his words, to a proper university to study a proper subject. And after he looked at the York prospectus, I'm afraid his suspicions only deepened. I remember him saying, "The university's got a department of sociology." Sorry, Paul, my father did not do ologies. And even worse, the education department offered modules such as pop music in education. Okay? And just for anyone who's had any interactions with university teaching committee, it didn't exist in those days, and departments could teach what they wanted. Can you imagine? But anyway, by chance, my father also noticed in the prospectus that one of the lecturers in the Department of Chemistry, David Waddington, had written the A-level practical textbook that we used at school. My father was a chemist, he approved of that. So on that basis, I was finding out how to apply to York. But with the proviso that if I ended up there, I wasn't to study rubbish. And you can imagine rubbish included pop music in education. So I never did get to do that. But why did I choose York? Well, it's true that the education part of the degree did look very interesting. But I began to think that York was really the place for me when I got to the chemistry department and saw a plaque there saying, "Opened by His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh on the 22nd of October 1965. And even better, when I got to the education department, opened by Her Majesty the Queen on the 22nd of October 1965. But I wasn't hankering after royal connections. It was the date that was significant for me, because the 22nd of October is my birthday. And that is the reason why I came to York. If my father's up there, sorry father, you didn't know that. But I have to say, I didn't know at the time York was going to be quite such an important place to me, because when I left, I thought I had a career as a teacher ahead of me. And indeed, I did teach for 8 years, mostly in Wimbledon. But then chance, it's funny how chance influences things. Chance, again, played a hand. The school where I was teaching was invited to send a chemistry teacher to an annual teachers' conference that the chemistry department held here. And my head teacher chose me to go. I think she knew I'd been a student at York, and by that time, David Waddington, the chemistry lecturer, the textbook author who had my father's seal of approval, was the head of the Department of Chemistry. It turned out that he perused the list of people attending the conference to see if there were any former teachers there, and they were invited to tea in his office. Now, there are some people here who know David, and if you know, you will know he was a very scary lecturer. So the thought of tea in his office on a one-to-one basis, just brought all those awful memories of physical chemistry tutorials back. But anyway, it turned out that David was just starting work on what was became the Salters Science Project, a small project sponsored by the Salters Institute, to encourage more young people to take science, chemistry up to 16. And when he discovered that I was just finishing my part-time PhD and encouraging more girls to do physics and chemistry, he offered me a one-year job to come work on the project. And just reflecting back now, I don't think HR would approve of that as a way of appointing people, certainly not in this day and age, but it is the case that that's how it's happened. And that was the start of the next 35 years, so Paul said plenty, and Michael, about that. 35 years is an enormous length of time, and I've been asked several times why stay at one place for that length of time. And the honest answer is that I've never had a better offer, and I've never seen a job that I thought would be better than the one I've had, at least on most days. That's 35 years of unadulterated bliss. But the slightly longer answer is I feel I've been incredibly lucky in my work. You know, the job's constantly evolved, always been new and exciting challenges, some quite daunting. But most of all, I've met and worked with wonderful people here at York, elsewhere in the country, and in other countries as well. I could pick out many highlights, many highlights, and many memorable moments. But I did promise to be brief, and I also need something for my tell-all memoirs in life. Decide to write them. So I'm just going to end now with some thank yous. And the first is to the department for putting on this event. And Paul mentioned that people would help, so thank you very much. It really is very much appreciated. The second one is to everyone in the University of York Science Education Group. The most wonderful, talented, lovely group of people. And the group's reputation is a tribute to all their hard work and dedication. I do talk about us as a team, but it feels like a family, and one that doesn't argue about where to go at Christmas as well. But seriously, a huge thank you for everything you do. And then finally to friends and colleagues everywhere, past and present, I'd like to say that I've loved working with you. I've learned such a lot from you. And it's your support and friendship that's kept me here for the last 35 years. So I want to wish you all the very, very best for the future. Thank you. Go and eat some more cake.
We'll come to you, Judith. So,
Right, okay, right.
So you might have predicted when the time came that we would do this. So we have. So, with all of our love, this is from us.
Well, thank you. This as well. Oh, right, okay, thank you. Well, I haven't got my glasses on. I can read the top bit which says, thank you, Judith, in brown. So, shall I? I can see some pictures here as well from deep, dark archives. I shall enjoy reading this evening.
I think my favourite picture on here is from a programme for the Association for Science Education when they described us as old favourites.
Oh,
Judith said, you know you've made it when you describe us as old favourites.
Well, it was a national treasure, I was worried about. This is best ever science teacher, you know, if it's described as a national treasure, that's it, that's the end.
And there are even more messages that wouldn't fit.
Oh no, right, okay, right. Gosh, thank you folks, that's really very, very kind of you.
I think you should sit down and do these.
Right, okay. Yeah, right, okay. Well, I shall find somewhere to display things and enjoy the moment, really. Thank you.
Not terribly heavy.
Okay. I'm running out of hands.
Yeah, take the clip ring.
Yes, I don't want to drop those. Thank you. Right, while you're eating your potatoes, I'll open this and then you can have a look if you want. Oh my goodness me, there's even a...
I feel like we should not really listen.
I've got in my office, I was trying to turn it this way, the ex-head of department's hammer, which was very useful when I was head of department. So gosh, I don't know where to cut. Right, and I can even see it says happy retirement in Welsh, so thank you folks, this is all wonderful. Yay! there as to whether it was a sponge cake or a fruit cake, so I can see where,
Yes.
where those fell. So I'm not going to cut any more, I'll let someone else do that. But thank you for
Thank you.
enough for me.